Well, hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into the White Knuckle podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Hey, everybody, thanks again for tuning into the White Knuckle podcast. We hope you loved last week's interview with Brad Kuhnert, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. I just wanted to remind everyone that Ozonics still has that incredible deal going on the HR 200 and HR 300. The HR 300's deal will expire on October 31st unless they decide to extend it. The HR 200, on the other hand, will go through the end of November. So if you are looking for a reason to buy an Ozonics unit, now is your chance, and now is definitely the time. The prices haven't been better than this as long as I've been involved with them. So head on over to their website, www.ozonicshunting.com, and go ahead and take advantage of either one of those units. We normally would give out our code WKP 2017, but that's not going to get you as good of a deal as what they are getting you. So with that, let's go ahead and start the show, part number 2, with Mr. Brad Kuhnert. Before we get into the interview, I just wanted to let you know, if you hear something that you already heard last week, that is by design. I backed up the show just to basically catch you up to speed and maybe jog your memory from where we were at last week. So with that, here's our interview with Brad.
One particular big buck and his sign, and so a lot of times there's just not a lot of deer in that area, but still, in my mind, I've got to get in and out quietly. And if I'm spooking deer as I'm getting to my stand or leaving, that's when I would just abandon that spot possibly and go to another spot that I've found in a different area where I think there's a big buck and go from there. But I just really can't stress enough about not spooking deer, getting in and out. And that's why I'm not hunting in, where they're feeding, where you'd be walking in the morning and jumping deer, or in the evenings leaving. I'm definitely, closer to that bedding area, and, just there again, just to not allow other deer to know that I'm even in there. And so sometimes the route of getting in and out may be a lot longer and a lot tougher than what it could be, but to do it right, sometimes you got to walk that extra half mile to get there.
Brad's confidence is definitely his experience, but if he's not seeing the sign in those areas, you're not wasting time there. I mean, you're on to the next one, and you got to have those indications, those sign, whether it's a big track, big sign, big rubs from previous. He's not sitting in a tree hoping to get lucky. He's strategically planned that hunt based on the sign and whatnot. So that's where a lot of the confidence comes from, is you just got to know he's there, and once you do, I kind of can relate. I don't care about any other deer. That's the only one I want to see. And if anything, I don't want to see any other deer because it just ruined your chances, if anything, along the way. But, Brad, one of the things...
You're right. I mean, if the sign's not there, obviously, I just don't have one spot up here I'm hunting. Like I said, I have 3 or 4, maybe 5 different spots picked out that I'll go to in the fall. Once I see the sign in one of them, that's where I'm going to be. And sometimes, too, it's hard. I haven't really found a lot of spots where you can consistently kill really big bucks in some of these areas in public land, because there's just not that many of them. So sometimes you may have to, if you do harvest one, you may have to move 4 or 5 miles, or more, just, to a different area. And so over the years, I have 4 or 5 different spots that I really like to hunt. And in them area, I'll go check them areas out. And one of them, generally speaking, will have the sign that I'm looking for. And once I find that, then that's pretty much the area that I target and hunt. And when we're talking, because of my job, all this back in this Jason, when you were talking before, was the reason in the spring and with my job and in the fall, I don't have a lot of time at times to get out and do, scouting every day and looking. And vacation-wise, I might have had a week or two. So at that point, when weather gets right and take off and go, you're making everything happen in probably a 10-day period if it's gonna. And then if it doesn't, I mean, obviously you got weekends and a few days here and there. But for the most part, with the jobs and stuff like that, I think most people hunting, they've got to put everything together in a short period of time.
I guess two questions, and maybe they can be answered in one answer. What's the right sign, and what's the sign or lack thereof that makes you go 4 or 5 miles away?
Basically, the one sign. I mean, up when you're not seeing. Sometimes maybe you had seen a deer the previous year, and he maybe wasn't a shooter, but he might be back in that area the following year. But I guess the number one sign that you're looking for up here, most part for me, is just a big track. I mean, that track distinguishes itself from all the other ones. You're hunting, a mature deer. Now, what it has for horns, a lot of times, sometimes they're really good scoring. Other times they may not be. I mean, they may be a 7 or 8 year old mature whitetail, and it might only score 130 or 140. But in my book, that's as good a trophy as it gets.
Brad, a real quick question on your tracks. When you say when you're tracking big bucks with big tracks, is there any tips that you can give anybody else? I mean, I don't know what kind of roads now, and also I don't know if we identified exactly where you're at, but Brad's almost in Canada. I'll just put it to you that way. He's about far north in Wisconsin you can get. So this is truly some big woods country. But is there?
Well, a lot of times, I mean, if you're not looking for, in tracks in the snow, obviously are easy, but a lot of times we don't have snow early. In these hardwood ridges, you're just seeing a track here and there in the mud. A lot of times, I mean, you're not tracking them all the way across, in the leaves, but you're just looking for, that big track mixed in with, with some big rubs, hopefully, or some rubs, just, sign in general. But generally, I mean, a big track means a big deer. So for the most part, so that's one of the main signs that I'm looking for up here is, and that's where it's, so much different for some people, and they're probably, where they want to know what they're hunting. I guess I love hunting the ghost, kind of, I just, it doesn't bother me to not always know what that deer is. I mean, are you always harvesting or seeing the animal that made that track? Sometimes maybe it's just a different deer, but generally speaking, I mean, if it's not that deer and it's still a mature one, I mean, it isn't like we have a lot of mature, I mean, some, but the sheer volume and numbers is not like they are in Iowa or Illinois or something like that. So when you see a mature whitetail in a lot of these areas, it's probably the same one that's made the sign or the tracks that you're looking for. But,
That's so awesome, man. I is there one buck from over the years that still haunts you that you weren't able to kill?
Oh, I don't know if we got the show long enough for some of these.
Right?
I don't know where they, I mean, yeah, there's been the one that haunts me the most was, probably back into the 80s. It was the Halloween storm where we had probably, I can't remember 18, 20 inches of snow. And that morning that I went in to get to my stand, well, first of all, getting there was probably 10 or 12 trees down on the road that I had to saw open just to get in. And that particular buck I was canoeing in after. And so I got in there pretty late because I had to cut the trees, and got into my stand and climbed up in there. And now you can imagine with this heavy, wet snow, it was in a pretty much of a pine area. And I was sitting there, and my shooting lanes, a lot of them were blocked because of the pine boughs being down with the snow. And I was thinking I should get down and knock some of these snow down so I have a little longer shooting lanes. And I didn't get down and do it, and it wasn't an hour later. And probably typical, maybe the biggest whitetail in Wisconsin was a 12-pointer, came by at about 14 yards and stood right in my shooting lane, but I couldn't shoot because the balsam boughs were all down because of the snow. And that's a particular buck that when he went by me, I got down and I tracked, and I found a spot, and I hunted in that spot, which was a better spot than where I was, I thought, to harvest him. I never did get that buck, but I did get a really nice buck second to last day of the early bow season that year in that same area. But I never heard of anybody getting them, and I went back the next year, and I didn't see any sign. I was in there, hunting gun season also, and never heard of anybody getting them. So that buck haunts me because I was in the right spot initially, and I should have had the pine snow not been the way it was, I probably would definitely would have had a good shot at him. So that buck, that one really
and a 200-inch that and the 200-inch typical ain't too bad either, right?
Yeah.
What's your most memorable hunt, Brad? I love listening to your stories, so humor me.
Most memorable hunt. Boy, there's a lot of them. I guess they're all memorable. One pretty, I guess, unique one was with good, and back to the scouting and how this paid out. Now, this was an area I hadn't hunted much, but I'd been in there scouting earlier in the year and knew that area pretty well. And there was a beaver pond, and deer kind of were working around it the previous year. And I didn't see the sign in there that I particularly was going to hunt it, so I didn't hunt that spot. But I was actually going over to Anigo to hunt with Andre. And I had left my house, and I was driving, and I looked down off the road about 50, 60 yards, and there was huge body whitetail and beautiful rack was just kind of walking along the edge of these pines and heading towards that beaver pond. And I thought to myself, if that deer goes where I think he might go, I might get a crack at him. So I got out of the truck, ran down the road, and hoofed it through the woods and got in by the beaver pond. And when I got in there was 2 or 3 really big rubs that were along the edge, and I thought, this has got to be the buck making these rubs. So I just found a spot where, just was perfect because of the wind and everything else, but I found a spot where I could get next to a couple pines on the ground and just sat there and figured, well, if he follows close to these rubs, I should be able to get a shot. So I sat there maybe 10 or 15 minutes and hear this buck come just exactly kind of along the edge of where them rubs were, and he came by at about 18 yards, and I shot him, and that was it. I mean, that was, at that time was the biggest buck that I had taken, with the bow from the ground, but it was very, I guess, satisfying, from knowing that area, knowing, seeing the sign from previous years, kind of knowing how they had traveled to, get out of the vehicle, go through the woods about a half mile, get back in there, and have it, for once, everything worked out right. That was pretty exciting and memorable hunt where, then I got on the phone and called Andre and told him, I got one on my way over, so I'll be a little late. So, and that deer, that one dressed 232.
Wow.
So it was a beautiful buck. So that one, being that it was on the ground and just having everything kind of come together was pretty special.
Well, I always know that back in the day, I always still listen, or I guess I hear you and Andre ringing in my head constantly of being half the battle is knowing where they're at. So as soon as you know where a big buck is, it's like you can either try to play conservative, or sometimes you just gotta force it a little bit and try things that you would normally not try, like hunting on the ground. And one of our good friends, and I don't know if you know him or have met him, Jared Scheffler from Whitetail Adrenaline. Brad, I think I've introduced you to him before, but he killed that 200-incher on public land out in Kansas on video with a recurve. But he does all of his ground and pound, literally stalking and just, completely unconventionally hunting these deer. And that's how he kills some of these monsters, is just by doing exactly the opposite of what any other hunter has ever tried to do that buck before. And that's the thing I think that struck so true from all those years of hunting was, if anything, you wanted to be doing the exact opposite of what everybody else was doing for more than one reason. Number one, probably because they've already educated the deer doing what they were doing, just because that's what everybody does, like hunt field edges and rattle every 10 seconds. But, going against the grain or doing oddball things kills huge deer, does it not? I mean, that's usually when it happens, is when you just try something crazy.
Yeah, no, a lot of times. I mean, I've had people. Even when I do harvest a deer, I usually try to get it out as far as I can on my own, no matter how far back I am. So nobody really knows exactly where I was, but I've had times where people have come in to help me drag the deer out, and they've made the comment is like, why on earth would anybody even hunt here? I mean, there's hardly any sign, there isn't, what were you here? And it was just like, I knew, in my mind, this is where he's going to come through. This is where he is the most vulnerable. Sometimes I think, at least what I see up here, and maybe that isn't the case in other areas, but when I find an area that is just loaded with sign, most times you can't hunt it. It's loaded for sign for a reason, because he knows he's safe there. He's making all that sign because he's spending his time there. If he's spending that much time there, in most cases, he's pretty much bulletproof. There's no way of getting to that area without spooking him. The wind's usually in his favor. So as odd as it may sound, a lot of times when I find that much sign, I really look hard and long to see if it's a spot that I can even hunt, where I can get to it and get out of it without spooking deer. And more times than not, that's not the spot where you're going to get one shot. Maybe you can go in there and it gets done the first day, but if it doesn't, he's out of there. And so a lot of times, I'm looking for that spot. Now I know where he's spending a great deal of his time, but now where is he, when he leaves here, where is he going? What direction is he going? Where is he headed? And that's where I'll look to kill him. Because over the years early on, when you talked about making mistakes and doing things, that's what the mistake that I was making early on. You see all that sign, and it's just like, oh my God, look at all the sign. And when I hunted it, you
got 50 yard shooting lanes cut through the middle of everything by the time you're done, and you wonder, oh gee, I wonder why he never showed up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it just seems to me like when there's that much sign, he's there for a reason, and that reason is he knows nothing can get to him. And so, like you were saying, sometimes that may seem odd, but that's just
dude,
in my
Brad,
experience, that's what I've found.
We've actually talked about that several times because I found the same thing, here in Iowa in different spots, and it's like, yeah, usually it's in the reason that you know that and why I know that is because of all the setups we tried to do in those, and then you get in there and the frickin' winds are just absolutely horrible. I actually pulled it off with the rusty nail. I went into a spot that was his bedding area, and it was a Hail Mary, and we had blown him right out, but he was back in there. But I just got away with it. Ozonics kind of helped in that particular case. But dude, that was the case in there. I mean, it was like a blind man. Any bow hunter would have walked in there and just got freaking crazy. I mean, just like, oh my God, adrenaline rush instant. He's here. And so you want to get back in there and hunt him as soon as possible. It worked out in my case, but man, I've blown so many different opportunities because of maybe being a little overly aggressive, but I've never been known to be the most patient person in the world either. Where that's where Brad, like during the Iowa hunt, it's gonna be like him hunting with Andre again, because that's a little bit more my style. I'm very impatient. I'm usually the first one back in the morning, and I'm the last one. I don't mind going out early in the evening, but I kind of generally don't like to sit all day and look at freaking birds or something.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some times where, when you're talking about the bedding and where I know that deer, pretty good idea that this is where he's bedded. I know where I'm not sure maybe exactly where. I know that's the area, but where he's getting to it, I'm not sure. But I know once he's there, in the evening he's going to come out. But so all day long he's in there. Any noise, anybody coming into that area, he's not going to leave or not obviously come out that particular direction. So I mean, I have actually set up for some evening hunts where I went in an hour and a half before light and sat there all day figuring that buck would be bedded in there, because I tried. There's no way I could. Like my morning setups would not have been as good as my afternoon setup, where if I am going to push or hunt in a bedding area like you were talking there, Todd, I mean, I've actually, like I said, sat all day and had that particular buck then get up and come out. But I didn't feel comfortable enough. I couldn't get in there during the day without blowing them out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I went in there in the morning. If I got a crack at them, great, or if not, I mean, I really was anticipating more of that even being my evening stand. So as odd as that sounds, maybe sometimes I've stood for where you're the last. I mean, I'm opposite of you, I guess. You're getting in late. I'm sitting for 10 hours before my evening hunt even begins.
Yeah. Yeah, so, this is a guy who goes up to northern Canada in places where very few white men have even hunted before, and will sit from an hour before light until an hour after dark at 50 below zero wind chill or something, Brad?
There's been a couple days. It's been pretty brutal, 40 below wind chill, stuff like that.
Yeah, dude, I wouldn't even have left the truck. I think I pretty much I would have to be pulling a Jim Shaggy inside of a little heated hut type hunt in that particular case. But no, the one of the things that I wanted to, just to get your opinion on, for your style of hunting, what weather days are your kill days? Like, I mean, we hunt cold fronts. Like right now, we've got one moving in Iowa. Right now, it's actually been pouring rain while we've been doing this podcast. And I'm just going nuts. And so that's the reason I'm going out hunting in the morning. How do you let weather, or how does your weather affect your hunting in the Northwoods? And I'm sure snow is a major factor, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, depends upon, if we get that early snow. It seems like many years ago, it seems like we had snow earlier during the bow season. Lately, it seems like it's been a little warmer. But I guess my favorite days to hunt are them clear, crisp, cold days. But a lot of times, like I said before, I mean, I only have 7 to 10 days. A lot of times I take a, week's vacation, maybe take off and get 10 days. So, you're what the weather is, it is. But bottom line, my favorite weather would be, after a rainstorm or any type of storm, the clear, sunny, cold days, the mature bucks seem to be on their feet more. But I mean, I have harvested some in some pretty nasty weather also, but it just seems generally them cold, crisp mornings really, really get them up on their feet.
And you're a morning guy. You love morning.
Yep.
God, I hate mornings. If I could, I wish they would just ban it so I wouldn't have to feel guilty about not going out.
No, I love mornings. I mean, most of the success I've had, is, mid-morning. I get in the mornings there again, a lot of times in a lot of these deer in northern Wisconsin, they're up on their feet a lot. I mean, that 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, that midday stuff is some killer hours to be out there. I've had a lot of success at that time of day. And where I'm hunting, I mean, I couldn't go in there in the afternoon. I mean, there again, I'm really getting in there in the morning, and as these deer are milling around, beating them into these areas or close to their bedding, just not to alert them. So, like I said, I'm sitting all day in there, basically, morning till dark. Once I get that spot, but generally speaking, that early morning to midday is where I've had most of my success time wise.
I that's the toughest time of day for me to sit, but on those days where where it feels right and you've got the history and those are days I don't have to push myself. And the other thing too is, you hear a lot of guys talking about sitting all day. If you're crazy and you like to torture yourself, go sit in a tree stand all day from light till dark. But I know Andre and yourself, and now I've adapted.
That's not torture to me. That's heaven.
Oh, God, I can't handle it that long in a tree stand. You must be like, I don't know, old school. But I am, you can bounce around. There's no reason that you can be hunting on a morning set and then move for midday and or for the evening. So you don't have to sit in the same stand. Lately, for myself and my job and everything else, because I hunt probably more than the average guy, I tend to do that. I've tortured myself on all day sets, and I just don't enjoy it anymore. But the number one, I guess, thing that you have mentioned several times is quietness, and I've really, really been getting into doing the same thing. I've been enjoying that process of trying to sneak in and see how close I can get into these bucks. But you really got to put yourself in their shoes, especially if the woods are noisy and you're hunting up in the big woods, up in the acorns and everything too, Brad, where, the conditions really do dictate where you can hunt and how you can hunt. But when it's really noisy, those bucks can lay in the timber and they'll sit and listen to you coming. And if you make one of the wrong sounds, which one ting is it, you can make a little bit of leaf ruffling, you can break some branches a little bit, but as soon as you start slinging tree saws up in the trees and start making any noises that are not natural noises, you will not see that buck. You won't even know he was there and that he busted you. And that's the most, I think that's the one thing most guys don't realize is how often they get busted. And those big bucks, they don't stand up and snort 15 times like a doe and run off. They will just sit there. They don't care about anybody but themselves. They're very selfish, and they'll either sneak out the backside or just be laying there at dark, and then they'll listen to you walk out, huh?
Yeah, and, to the all-day thing, though, it's just totally different being, hunting Iowa, Illinois. I mean, to get in and out isn't that far. I mean, some of these areas where I'm going in, I mean, it's an hour and a half walk at times. So you just don't want to go in and come back out and then go back in again. Sure. And the one thing that I do, though, once I'm hunting these spots, and I know I'm just married to that spot, I'm sticking it out here now for the next 5 to 7 days, is when I get down onto my stand, I have a plastic bag. I take all my clothes off that I'm hunting with, and I leave them in that bag. I change into other clothes. I walk out. When I walk in the morning, I change my clothes and put the hunting clothes that I had in pine balls all night long and put them clothes on in the morning. So I'm not, carrying a lot of that stuff out, but still the sheer distance sometimes and difficulty of getting into where you are, you just can't get up and leave. You're pretty much forced to stay in there all day.
Well, that's probably why you've been killing those big bucks all those years, man, because you're just willing to do the things that not too many guys are, and we love you for it, man. I guess, Jason, do you have any last comments? Or I have one final thought or one question.
I've got 100, but nothing that I don't think indirectly has been answered. I think just kind of paraphrasing what Brad said is it really boils down to, I guess it really boils down to woodsmanship and knowing how to interpret what it is that you're looking at, and there's no substitute for that. And in many ways, I think with all the gadgetry and garbage that's out there, we've gotten so far away from that. And I think I could ask all kinds of questions till I'm blue in the face, and at the end of the day, I'm still going to get the same answer. And that's, having the ability to read the sign, listening to guys like Brad or Dan Infault or any of the folks that we've talked to. They've all got something unique in terms of a perspective to give us, and so I don't think that any question that I would have is going to change anything. I look forward to the challenge that lies ahead for both of us. I completely changed how I am going to be hunting this year, and honestly, I can see it's going to be a mental battle. But everyone that I've talked to has prepared me for that, and doing shows like this just reinforce what it is that I've got to do. So I appreciate, you just even taking the time to sit here and BS with us about deer hunting. It's great.
No, my pleasure. But what you were saying is exactly right. I think the Lord's given me a gift to see things that maybe other people don't. Or that sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, that when I get into the woods and I just get that feeling and seeing it, like somehow just tells me this is the spot. No matter sometimes how much sign or what it is, this is the spot that it's going to happen. And it's hard to. There's nothing that you can teach everybody. Knows the rubs and scrapes and see it, but it's somehow putting that all together and be able to visualize, what that deer's gonna, where he's better, what he's gonna do, where he's gonna come through, and just have the confidence that spot that you have chosen is the right spot. But a lot of it's just, it's just you maybe have ran into that same situation or something that looks similar, and here's kind of the same setup. This worked for me before. This is probably going to, could work again. And it's just, like you said, it's there's no one secret thing that you could tell. It's just, being in the woods, reading the sign and interpreting it right. And it's just something I think, that I definitely been blessed with. So.
Yeah, in addition to that, it's also, I think I've resoundingly heard you say it's the wind. That's the great equalizer. It always has been, and it always will be. You've got to play the wind to the best of your abilities. Now we use Ozonics, and I don't plan on stopping that. But in many cases, we're using that as sort of a safety net if they happen to come downwind, and we're able to beat them with the Ozonics, and that's happened. That's great. But by and large, we're playing the wind, and it sounds like that's a huge part of your strategy as well. It's just straight up playing the wind.
Yeah, and I guess my thoughts, and this is just back to the old school. I guess you'll cut this part out, but I don't want to use Ozonics. I don't want to use anything. I want that deer. I want it one-on-one, me and him, and I want to beat him at his game. I don't want to be able to take someday a special pill that gives me no scent. Then anybody can go out and kill a deer. I want him and me to be one-on-one, and if I mess up, he smells me. And that's going to make me a better hunter. So as far as being in, blinds, box blinds, all that, I've been in them, I've hunted out of them. But the ultimate hunt for me is just me and him. If I take some pine boughs, what's naturally in the woods, rub some dirt on me, that's fine. But the rest of it, I want, as strange as it sounds, I want him to be able to smell me, like I said, if I make a mistake. Because I want to beat him at his game with nothing but, I guess, me doing everything right, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it does.
I appreciate that, and I think a lot of other people, and that's the beauty about hunting is we're so lucky we can all choose and pick and use these different products if we have faith in them. And they work for us, and ethically it's okay individually, each hunter, whether you're using a crossbow, a bow, whatever. That's the beauty of it, is you can make it your own, and thankfully we don't have to do it on a private ranch here like in so many other countries.
Right. I get when I was younger, I was always hoping for that pill. That was I never would. So somehow I would there be no sense. I thought that'd be the greatest thing on earth. But as I'm getting older now, my mind's went and has changed now almost 360 degrees. That what I just want it me against him right now, and it's just not that there's many times when something goes wrong that I wish I had that pill that I had no scent, but when I'm hunting up here, it's totally different. Another thing, a little bit with some of this stuff, and back to the light stand, is when you're going in, there's only so much gear you can take in with you. When you're going back in, I mean, there's some of these places where, I've walked half mile, 3/4 mile, then go through a swamp and waders to go through another 1/4 mile swamp, then go to the other side and keep going. So as far as some of these extra things maybe to take with you to help you, you're kind of limited on what you can take in as far as, different items like that. I guess.
You should see our backpacks now, Brad.
Yeah.
You guys would have laughed at me on Sunday. I sort of got my system down where I used that Ozonics pack, the kinetic pack, and that houses the Ozonics unit nicely and keeps that safe. And then I'm able to throw a Lone Wolf over top of that. But I put on nearly 5 miles on Sunday, and I thought at one point, I'm like, God, I hope nobody has any trail cameras out here, because I look like I'm about ready to die as I'm coming up this, the next hill. But yeah, I'm learning that less is definitely more, especially when you're having to, in many cases, like I am now, I'm having to walk an extra, half mile to a mile in some cases. And I have already, and it's paid off, just to get where I need to get. So without, educating every deer in the block, so Yeah, definitely. There's some merit to that argument. You got to lighten the load as much as you can.
Yeah, and and that's again back to the Assassin. I mean, it was just the perfect stand for my way of hunting. I needed something that was even more compact than the Assault or anything else that we had out there with Lone Wolf. I mean, and then again, like I said, just something that could fit into any tree that you needed it to. But bottom line, it's just compactness of carrying so much stuff in. I'd probably be the opposite.
Right.
You would laugh when you see me going in the woods with 3 or 4 of them little mini sticks in the Assault underneath my jacket, so you don't even see it. It looks like I'm going in with, I got 2 sandwiches, a candy bar, and a can of pop, and 4 arrows. That's about it.
But
so
But Brad, do you have the soda pop can silencer that silences the opening of the can?
No, I don't have a can. I should have corrected that. It's a bottle of pop. And I will give you a little tip too on when you're hunting in the real brutal cold. You got to have like a dark pop, because any of the light pop will freeze before probably 9 o'clock in the morning. The darker pop won't freeze as much as what the clearer stuff will.
Really? You learn everything. Tell you what, food basics with Brad Kuhnert. We could have an outdoor pack show. No, but I'm going to tell you guys this. Brad is as tough as nails. Like, that dude can put up with... I'm kind of a baby. I get cold real easy. I sweat real bad. So I just can't handle the cold weather. I get very uncomfortable in morning hunts, which is why I hate them. But, yeah, Brad's making this sound real easy. He has probably put as many hours in a tree stand as probably any white person in North America, I would gather, maybe. I think Andre probably has you beat by now. But
oh yeah, well, like I said, I mean, I put a lot of hours in for probably when you put it for a 10-day period. I am probably when I'm hunting every day, morning to dark, 7-8 days in a row, whatever it would take. There's a lot of hours, but I haven't had the luxury to be able to hunt. A lot of October, November. It's been, with vacation time and stuff like that. I've really boiled most of my hunting down to, a 7 to 10 day period and occasional weekends here and there. But for the most part, it's going to have to happen in that time frame.
Well, with all my food plots and stuff, I might have to find some crappy public land to put you on down here, Brad.
That'd be great.
This is going to be way too many deer, way too organized, and tree stands are trimmed. You ain't going to like any of this.
Oh no, it's going to be a blast. I mean, I love it up here, but there's nothing wrong with being down there and seeing deer, and up here it's tough right now, with all the wolves and the bear, predation and that in the spring and the fawns and that. There's not a lot of deer up here. It's getting pretty tough. Back in the 90s, we had some pretty good years where there was a lot of good bucks around and enough deer to be able to get out and see some and stuff like that. But it's getting tougher and tougher right now. It's kind of sad what's with the number of deer up here for these young kids that are, trying to get them into hunting and when for me it's just a way of hunting and not seeing deer doesn't bother me, but for most people it does, and especially the young kids. It would be great if we had more deer in the public land, because that's what most people, all they have to hunt is public land. A lot of them don't have the luxury of having, much for private land to hunt. And, some have maybe a little 40 mixed in the public land here and there, or 80, but for the most part, that's kind of all public land hunting there too. And it just would be nice if our deer population would get up there, that young kids could get out and see a few more deer than what's up here, right now. So it's a tough time to be hunting public land here in northern Wisconsin. I think northern, Michigan and Minnesota are kind of in the same boat. So, but it's they're still there. There's still good bucks out there. But the key thing is too, I guess the one key thing, if anything, it is just back to patience. You got to have a lot of patience to hunt in public land in the big woods in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, anywhere in the northern states. You're just not going to see the deer. You got to be willing to put the time in and be patient.
Well, Todd said it time and again. It's if even in our area, if you want to sit on a food plot and see 500 to 1,000 yards in every direction and see 20, 30 deer a night, that's if that's your thing, that's great. Go for it. But if you want to kill a big buck, you're going to probably be in a situation where you're likely to see 1, 2, 3 deer at the most.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of times these big bucks up here, a lot of times I don't think they don't like hanging around a lot of deer. I mean, they're kind of off by themselves. It isn't where they're bedded. Kind of in some areas, Iowa, Illinois. I mean, where the chunks of woods are smaller. Naturally, the does and the bucks are going to bed closer together. But up here, generally speaking, they're, other than the rut when they're with them a little bit, other than that, you're again looking for sign that's just made by maybe that buck. There isn't really even a trail. It's just kind of sign where he's coming through, where he eventually crosses a main trail here and there. But for the most part, they're not on maybe the more well-used trails by the does. They're off in a whole total direction and eventually just kind of intersect them somewhere, and there again, that's kind of a spot that you're kind of looking for. So it's definitely different.
Well, thank you so very, very much, Brad, for finally having the chance to sit down with us. Jason and I have both been really, really trying hard to get Brad to come on, because I've really looked up to Brad a lot, not only just as a really great hunter, but he's just a great person. And I think have your priorities straight. It's kind of refreshing in today's give it to me now instant gratification trail camera pictures coming in on my cell phone right now. That's the world we live in. But sometimes the best thing you can do is get back to the basics and simplify. And yeah, man, I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to doing some hunting with you and some filming. We're gonna have a good time. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it too.
Well, I can't wait to hear the stories.
It'll be cool. Well, actually, you know what? Let's plan on doing a podcast when Brad's down here. We'll do an update on our hunt or something midway through, and we can kind of do a combo package there. But Jason, you want to take us out?
I absolutely can do that. Brad, do you have anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, one thing too. I mean, back to what we were just talking about. I mean, I enjoy hunting Iowa, Illinois. I mean, when we were talking, hunting up here in the big woods, I mean, it isn't the only spot I hunt. I mean, there's, but when we're talking where my passion is and where I generally have done most of my hunting is in the big woods. But I certainly enjoy going to, Iowa, Illinois, and different areas and hunting there. It's a different style than what I'm used to. What you were saying too before, Todd, I can't believe how aggressive, like Andre was and how you are. The hunting style is just, to me, I'm like, oh boy, I don't want to go in there. Where I would never go. I never hunt the same, but it's good. I've learned a lot after hunting down there, and it's still hunting whitetails, and that's my passion, is hunting whitetails, and I still totally enjoy it. But I was just hoping that what we were talking about here was just hunting. It's just totally different. But my passion, my number one passion is I just love to hunt deer in the big woods. But don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to coming down to Iowa and seeing a bunch of deer down there.
I'm really anxious to get out in the field with you just to get your opinion on some of my areas, because some of them each area you swear you got the best of them, and then they show you up and you try to come together with your best game plan. But I've never really had anybody hunt with me on my farm that I would consider to be like a whole different package of experience above myself. So I'm really, really anxious to hear some of your feedback, but I can guarantee you one thing, Brad, you've never sat in such beautiful setup tree stands. They're all completely level, all trimmed out real nice, and they each have a pull string.
I carry my bow up on my back with me. I always do. I never use a pull rope.
Of course you don't. He generally in the big woods, when he kills one of his big bucks, he has to sleep inside of it in order to survive the winter that night. Gets up.
Oh, come on now.
He eats their heart raw out of their chest, and that's how he freaking packs them out.
Yeah.
I'm interested in hearing, Brad, what kind of parallels you draw from hunting the big woods versus hunting, some of the places that Todd's going to have you, because I'm going to guess, and I'll just go out on a limb and say right now, many of the methods that you've adapted aren't going to be a whole lot different than what you do in Iowa. At least it'll be interesting to hear if you feel like it's a completely different ball game. I realize that the numbers of deer and things like that will change, but at the end of the day, it's still, I think it's still about woodsmanship, and there's no substitute for that.
I think the hardest part for me is going to be sitting all day and seeing Todd walk by me 4 times in one day, but we'll see.
Yeah, that ain't no joke, man, I'm telling you. Yeah, I'll be like, I'll see you for dinner, Bradley. Yeah. But I actually have a few spots, like areas that I don't have a lot of stands in. I've considered sanctuaries, but each year I'm hunting individual different bucks that live in areas, and sometimes I never even get to hunt these spots, and you put all the time, energy, and stuff. So I'm going to let him wreak havoc in a few areas and just go in and scout it and hunt it and see what he sees and kind of see where he picks to hunt in some of these areas. And thankfully, none of those will have any big bucks in them this year, but it'll be good for Brad to get out and exercise his legs a little bit in Iowa, right?
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that challenge.
No, we're gonna have a bunch of cool stuff to hunt, and we'll be doing some hunting together as well. So anyway, Brad, thank you so much again, yeah. Jason. I'll see you guys on the other side.
Thanks so much, Brad. I appreciate you taking the time. Well, there you have it, our interview with Mr. Brad Kuhnert. Brad's a great guy and definitely a wealth of knowledge, and we're already talking about doing another episode. We'll probably wait till this winter. We're going to go over what Brad does in the off time when there's not 3 feet of snow up there in northern Wisconsin, what it is that he's looking for and how he goes about maybe identifying something digitally and then, honing in, basically zooming in on it from there. And then how he goes about using that information that he finds in the winter, spring, whatever you want to call it, and puts it to use then again in October, and how he's able to put that piece of the puzzle together. I think that's about all that I've got for this week. I just want to remind you again, not to sound like a broken record, but we do need your reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever it is that will accept basically a review for our podcast. It would be of great benefit for us to have you do one of those. If you don't know how to do one, go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll walk you through the process. Sounds like things are really starting to heat up out there. I had the last 4 days of this last week off. I believe it was the 23rd through the 27th or something like that. And we had a great time, saw a lot of deer. And as the week went on, it just got busier and busier and busier. I'm hearing from team members that they're starting to see some movement. And my Spartan cameras are also telling me that deer are starting to get on their feet more and more. So when this hits tomorrow morning, you will likely be looking down the barrel of a pretty good cold front that's going to be moving through just about all of the upper Midwest or the Midwest as a whole, and we should have some pretty good hunting conditions. So be safe, wear your harness, and best of luck to everyone. Have a great week. Jason out.